What's going on? Boys, even more order development. Except we have a ton of topics, and I can't promise you they are going to be webbed together well, but I have paper notes and phone notes, so we will see what we come up with. Paper Note 1. Some thoughts on varieties of mysteries. And I used to hate that word, but now I'm beginning to appreciate it. I hated it before because, to my mind, why would you organize a set of beliefs around things you don't know? Why aren't you making more efforts to solve them? Or, if these are mysteries that have answers, one, why do you call them mysteries? And two, why do you not give them to people immediately so you can start working more actively on things you don't know? Now I get it a little bit better. There are two varieties of unsolved mysteries. Starting with unsolved mysteries that we maybe can solve. And with those, yes, actually, much of your time will be spent trying to solve them. Those are a bit self-explanatory. Unsolved mysteries we probably can't solve. Those are important because they're so fundamental. They're so basic we can't even contend with them. The fact these things are questions at all, they're so simple but we don't have answers to them. Those inform the way we look at the world. Why is this something we don't or can't know? The most fundamental, unsolvable, unresolvable mystery is the monad. Why do we exist at all? Why is there something instead of nothing? And we distinguish monad or the monad from the idea of toddy, which we would consider a standard creator deity, because the monad isn't an individual. It doesn't necessarily have agency. It is just the singularity of fundamental not knowing or can't knowing versus a concept like toddy, which is, for all intents and purposes, a creator god that has mastered material, has mastered existence, but alone doesn't answer the question of non-existence. That's why you put the monad before toddy or a creator god, because you can't have a creator god without acknowledging the contradiction that something would have needed to create it. That's the monad. What the fuck is going on? And when you inform your order with a mystery like the monad, you get behaviors inclining people toward questioning everything. How far back can we peel reality before we hit our bedrock, the limits of what we can comprehend? And then what can we learn in finding our limits? So we can't know why the monad, but in using an unsolvable mystery, we can figure out a bunch of things we can know. And then we have solved mysteries, whose answers we don't exactly hand out on a silver platter to anyone who asks. We, rather than handing out these answers, make people aware of these mysteries and give them the tools to solve them, because in solving them, one learns something. Not just the solution we reached, but rather how to reach solutions on one's own. Or perhaps texturing the order a bit more while developing these tools. For instance, if an initiation rite were full on sprinting 1 mile as fast as you can get there with work, but you'll learn about the order or about yourself upon realizing that shit is exhausting, especially if you don't do cardio. And that experienced lesson will support you and inform you going forward. Not just sprinting the mile, but how it feels to sprint a mile. Second paper point. Symbols are very useful. And it's frustrating because in typological terms, it seems like NI types already know this. They already know the value of symbolism. My stupid ass is just finding this out. Symbols are useful because they, well, for a number of reasons, but firstly, because they almost go beyond written narrative language. If you've had tons of felt experiences with symbols, one look at a symbol can communicate a message to you, can put you in a state of mind, can help you distinguish, can help you obscure, and so on. And symbols are especially useful because they get you out of language mind. A good symbol can make you feel all this shit and activate your consciousness. Because if you're reading words on a page, no matter how you feel about them, the words on the page are the words on the page. But because symbols aren't words on a page, you might get the message, the intended message, but you also get your own message, and perhaps other messages, maybe unintended messages, but probably intentional messages communicated through that symbol. I love the way one symbol can mean, in all its forms, one thing to one person and something entirely different to another person, but both experience that symbol to the same intensity, but get completely different things out of it. Good symbolism is important. And I forgot to mention in the first point, I am working my way through the Tao Te Ching, and it's interesting to me that one of the earliest lessons it teaches is that something is older than God, and they're implying that's Tao. Now, I don't know, or I haven't gotten to it yet, I'd have to ask around maybe. I don't know if they mean the Tao is just the mystery, or the mystery and its implications, all the shit it implies, the teachings, the mystery and the teachings together, or just the mystery. But I think this monad idea, this older than God, this the before idea is essential to cutting into some serious shit. We're not crazy. Which is a great preface for paper point 3. I have recently been in constant shock of standard forms of femininity's desire to be objects, to be acted upon instead of actors themselves. Deep disappointment. And even if that is so unfortunately the standard, I still believe there are exceptions. I don't think I could exist if there weren't exceptions. But I've been moving toward malicious feminism, right? Because there is corpo feminism, which is your decision on which chains you want to wear. Do you want to be an office slave? Do you want to be a domestic slave? Or do you want to be a mysterious third slave who is enslaved by her desire to identify with an aesthetic using money, there must be some tribal or punk or occult feminism that is focused on women or feminine will to power in the ascending sense, but I can't fucking find it. So, malicious feminism. I took a shot at going through this point in full, but I've decided I need to think about it more, and then maybe I'll make a video about it. But the flaming oil tanker of a rant I just dove out of, I don't want to get grassy knolled, unless I think it's worth it, which it might be if I put more time into fleshing this idea out. The key idea here, the salvageable idea, is the dreest, or the driest. So I was looking... I was looking for the superlative to dry, and I assumed it was driest. And apparently that isn't a word, because you dry, D-R-Y, it can't be D-R-Y-E-S-T, it must be D-R-I-E-S-T. I don't know why I know that, but it must be. So I look it up, and as a superlative, people are conflicted about whether or not it should be driest or most dry. And while I'm looking at this word, normally I would say, well, of course, driest is a word, because it only makes sense that it would be a word. However, D flipped upside down is P, and P would be priest, or priest, which is another interesting sounding word. But you flip it upside down and you get dreest, or driest. And so here I'm going to say driest as a superlative for dry isn't a word, because I want to take over dreest, or driest, as a title. Because dreest is a stupid but grimy and neat sounding word, and driest sounds like dryad, maybe a little bit of druid, and also like the younger Dryas. So we aren't going to get into malicious feminism today, but we are the driest. We're the fucking driest people on the block. Drier than Ben Shapiro's doctor wife. Black-blooded dreest sounds like something out of an awful fantasy novel. It sounds like Grease, too. That's probably why I like it. I said grimy earlier. It's actually greasy. It's dreesty. I almost forgot the dreest. Okay, alright, on to point 4. The next point is about branding more than just the star. Because I've been trying to come up with good symbols for each of these gospels or concepts in our cosmology. And one of the oldest recurring symbols worldwide in human history is the swirl. And you see that shit everywhere in nature, too. And I think the swirl would represent the monad. But the reason I bring up these additional symbols and branding is symbols, again, good symbols, loaded symbols, are useful for contemplation. The symbol becomes almost a bag of holding for all your thoughts and feelings and research in relation to that symbol. Every little thing you go through gets added to your conception of that symbol. But you need a symbol in the first place to do that. Something to contemplate and throw concepts and experiences into. And then, once you not mastered it, but feel it. Feel that symbol. Then you can brand that onto your body as well. And why branding specifically? Well, we've talked about it a bit before, but I think there was. I've seen it only on t shirts, but I saw the symbol somewhere else beforehand. It is the Make Me Greater Than the Pain skeleton. I don't know where that came from initially, but I like it a lot. The pain and permanence of branding yourself ritualizes your understanding of and dedication to a concept. It's like getting a merit badge, except on your skin, and you really had to feel it. You feel this concept deeply enough, you are willing to hurt yourself to wear it on your flesh prison forever. And unlike with tattoos, if your burns get uglier with age, that's all the better. Because their prettiness isn't the point. The artistry isn't the point. The pain is the point. The permanence is the point. Watching your burns get uglier with age deepens your connection with them, what they mean to you. The concept and your understanding of it is deepening with age. Paper point number 5. Accept you don't matter initially, so you can accept the same in others or of others. This is important because I don't think people really grasp in perspective how unimportant they are. You're lucky if you're a statistic. You're lucky if someone, after your passing or while you're alive, decides to mark you down somewhere for something. If you experience a tragedy, nobody is going to give a shit. If anything, they are going to kick you while you're down, or they are going to use your trauma to emphasize their own trauma and probably make money somehow. Or, more likely, nobody is going to give a shit at all if they knew in the first place, even if you were screaming it from a mountaintop. You don't matter. People don't care. And trying to internalize this might feel bad at first, but I think once you get it in you, it is liberating. It's kind of like accepting your shadow and embracing your capacity for evil. At first, it's distressing. I have the capacity for evil? Question mark. And then once you've sat with it for a while, it becomes I have the capacity for evil! Exclamation point. By the way, while we're on the evil subject, I think one of the reasons people are so foul is their utter denial of their own capacity for evil. That's going to piss your shadow off, make it more powerful, and then take advantage of the vulnerabilities you've created in yourself by denying it exists, and it's going to make you do evil shit that you probably won't even perceive as evil. Accepting your shadow means accepting you are evil. Not so you can repress it better, because knowing about it and then doing the exact same shit gets you the same results, but accepting that you are evil and being evil. And when you let your shadow do evil shit, when you let yourself do evil shit, you have more say in how you are evil. So you know what's going on, and you know what you're doing is fucked up, but at least you're doing it in a way you can co-sign somewhat, instead of doing some really foul shit to people and not even having the capacity to realize what you're doing is foul. We're going to come back to this because I think I just accidentally stepped into a digitally written point. Anyway, in accepting that you don't matter, or the degree to which you don't matter, you can then treat other people accordingly. You don't matter, nobody gives a shit about you, nobody else matters. You don't need to give a shit about them. And you shouldn't. At least not by default. Number 6, something Saint O'Neill said once upon a time that isn't a huge thing to get into, but remembering or putting everything on yourself. Saying, it's my fault. It's your fault. The more responsibility we can bear to take, even when things aren't our faults, makes us think about what we could have done proactively or better in the future. So even if something isn't your fault, if you think about it like it is your fault, then you'll think better. Probably act better too. Yeah, number 7 actually was accepting evil. So again, not accepting that you have the capacity for evil so you can continue to repress it better but actually worse, but accepting that you are evil right now in ways you probably don't even perceive as evil. So, when it comes time to be evil in the future, when your shadow is on its bullshit, you can direct it better. Evil, accepted and well directed, can get a lot of shit done. So number 8 and 9 are two together. In a similar vein, actually. Psychopaths are born shadow integrated. They do evil like breathing. You must learn these powers manually and become yet greater with knowledge thereby. In other words, psychopaths are like a different species. They're born with an instinctive leg up. They already have full access to their shadows. Now, reminder, psychopaths aren't all evil all the time. That's actually that misconception is how they hide. But they have no issues going straight into shadow mode. It doesn't come out at weird times like it would in a sociopath. It's them. Yin and yang together at once. But their shadow integration is born. They're wired that way. If you can learn how to integrate your shadow manually using knowledge, meditation, spiritualism, whatever, I would argue you have a better control of your shadow, a more robust shadow, a more robust capacity for evil, because you know what it means to be shadow integrated, because you used not to be, and how best to direct it. Not to use it, not to command it, but to direct it. Number 10, pilgrimages are cool. They give you things, I wrote things, symbols, landscapes, histories, messages, whatever. They give you a lot of loaded shit in your cosmology or your understanding of the world to consider, and then ample time and circumstances, pilgrimages aren't easy, to contemplate them. I think I mentioned last video, I've been playing a Redoran and Tribunal Temple Nerevarine and Morrowind this go-round, and you do a lot of pilgrimages. And I remember when I first got into Morrowind, I hated the pilgrimages, because it's so slow and like, what the fuck is this? What is this? But now that I am developing an understanding of what Morrowind means, and what it can mean, not just as a game, but as a vehicle to think about metaphysics, these pilgrimages are really nice. I like them. I kinda wish... The United States has so many things and places in it, why don't we have more pilgrimages? Why don't we have more pilgrimages? We should make up some pilgrimages. Wouldn't that be fun? In 20 years, when we certainly aren't dead, all to gang up on a SOA convoy across the states and just have a nice long time to see some interesting sights, learn some history, and think about shit. Number 11, this one was fire, I remember this one. Leaders should undergo trials to prove their right to rule. You can rule because you've demonstrated your ability to X, perform some or a series of higher level functions. United Statesian leaders are chosen by their ability to impress soulless, lazy droolers. And even that choice is an illusion. Presidents fucking steal elections all the time. Not just in recent history, by the way. This, election stealing has been going on for a nice long time. I don't know how people keep forgetting about this. This is another really interesting Morrowind thing. To become anybody, or to earn right to rule in different forms in Morrowind, you need to complete different trials for different sorts of groups. So, for the great houses, you need to perform political type trials, according to each house. For Ashlander tribes, you need to perform chieftain type trials to become the Hortator for the great houses, and to become the Ashlander Nerevarine, or to be named Nerevarine, even though you are the Nerevarine technically, for the Ashlanders. The idea being, on the one hand, you demonstrate political ability to get a bunch of cats corralled, and on the Ashlander side, to get your hands dirty and do shit. Right to rule is granted only upon accomplishing these trials, and I think that's not a bad way to vet leaders. If a leader can't, accomplishing whatever set of trials is set up doesn't automatically make someone a leader, but to become a leader, they need to demonstrate their ability to undergo certain trials. And that doesn't even mean finishing them in one set way, but demonstrating they have the ability to generate a solution, some solution in their own way. Like we mentioned in the very beginning, actually, solving the mystery yourself, proving your ability to solve a mystery, and either having or developing the tools to solve that mystery yourself. That, except in some leadership fashions. Number 12, another way to look at the world we're in right now, your flesh prison might actually be the equivalent of a fleshy, hyperbolic time chamber for your soul. Can you bear the heat of a lower existence? We'll see. I have a feeling if a human were put in the body and mind of an ant, they would snap, either from horror or from pressure, or just from reality. Reality isn't very kind to ants. Reality isn't very kind to humans. That was the other thing. I think I'm going to stay using my frog icon, because being incarnating into a human form feels like being transformed into a frog, being turned into an ant. Other frogs, disgusting Hylics, are looking at you with frog eyes, and you are looking out through frog eyes with a human's soul. Maybe that's what we're going through. Maybe that's what psychics are. By the way, for clarification, I know I posted a link to what I was talking about a while ago, but Hylic means soulless, barely animated form made to be controlled. Psychic is person with a soul but hasn't broken out per se, has the capacity to ascend. We aren't using it in the Gnostic context exactly. I like the way they set it up, but we are using it for ourselves in a different way. And then pneumatics, in the Gnostic sense, a person whose soul is actualized, disciples of Sophia, connected with their monad. Our pneumatics, I would say, kind of the same thing, but in Gnosticism, it seems like psychics and pneumatics are strictly on the good path. I think we have bad psychics and even worse pneumatics also, in addition to just generally dog shit Hylics. Number 13, your flesh prison influences the flavor of your soul. Like if you were to pour water into a dirty glass, the water wouldn't taste like water, it wouldn't stay pure. Something to think about. Not telling you to go straight edge and purify yourself, but rather the substances or what you do, what you put in your body, what you do with your body, flavors the way your soul is going to develop, if it develops, if you choose to develop it. Now we are going to go through some digital notes in reverse order. No amount of material strengthening makes you safe. You need to prepare yourself spiritually for the next life. So, you can become as strong, as wealthy, and as powerful as you want. You're still a human. You're still going to die. By all means, practice your will to power, but don't make the mistake of thinking that's your be-all, end-all. You are developing power materially, specifically so you can develop power spiritually, for whatever comes next, if anything comes next. They are tricking you into feeling safe. You need to be stressed and afraid. Anything less makes you an easy target. So this other one is related to typology. I was thinking about the way shadow types are actually kind of the same things expressed a different way. So I wrote this of INFJs. They are reflections of society. A mob of shitters wearing positivity clothes. And it struck me, they are all, well, not every single one. There are exceptions, but there are fewer exceptions with that type than there are with any others. They are so almost universally like that because that is what society is. And in that vein, a pattern I noticed is their urge to tell other people what other people think of them. So you're talking to X person, and they'll tell you A, B, and C all think this about them. And they all fucking do this. And it's annoying. I don't know what it means, or I didn't know what it means, but I noticed ENFPs actually do the same thing. They're shadow types, completely different. And operate in different fashions, but they're also very similar. In the sense, I mean in a lot of ways, but they both do that. Telling X person what A, B, and C people think of them, to try to get X person to think that about them. Both types do that. INTPs and ENTJs are similar-ish also, but I need to think about this typology thing a bit more. Trying to help people who don't want to be helped, parenthesis, whom you have no right to help, actually, close parenthesis, wraps your chains tighter. Proto-men, the stand. Number one, you don't have the right to try to force your help on people who don't want it. And if someone doesn't want to be helped, don't help them anyway. I mean, you already don't have the right to do it. But even still, you might think you're being kind by trying to help. Don't do it. They're going to drag you down with them. You don't matter. They don't matter. Don't let them turn you into a potential statistic early. Understanding there's no happy outcome doesn't mean rolling over and taking it. You can at least affirm your dignity by fighting to preserve your dignity. If there are exploiters and exploited only, then maybe it's worth fighting to become the former. Evil is like spicy food. It hurts at first, but it releases good chemicals and you can develop a tolerance for it. I am practicing eating spicy foods, and I am actually developing a tolerance for it. It's gotten to the point where I don't really taste the spice of this ramen I'm eating repeatedly anymore. All I taste mostly is the flavor, but I still get that nice release of endorphins that comes with eating particularly spicy food. It's kind of fire. Does love require deep stupidity? Question mark. I don't remember what I was thinking on that one, but it is a good question. Ubel. I see what you're saying, but I don't feel it, and therefore don't understand it on that deeper level. So this is Ubel from the Frieren manga, which, shit, we really need to make a video about the Frieren manga here soon. Really good stuff, top to bottom. Ubel. So Ubel is interesting because she has an intuitive understanding of magic rather than a strictly academic one, and that makes her powerful. So, without spoiling too much, she can cut things she theoretically shouldn't be able to cut if the materials or things can be cut. So, she has all this magical power. She can't cut through a stone wall because stone isn't something that you can cut with scissors. An enchanted robe that makes someone invulnerable, she can cut through that easily, straight through it, frighteningly easily, because a robe is made of cloth and cloth is something that can be cut. The point in writing this one down being demonstrating the difference between logical understanding and intuitive or felt understanding. Ubel can explain why she can cut things that shouldn't be able to be cut, and you can see it and logically say, I see what you're saying, I see why that would work, but you don't feel it, and it actually makes no sense at all. This is impossible. I can see how this works, I can see what you're saying logically, but it makes no sense, and I can't replicate it because it makes no sense to me on that level. That gulf in understanding we were talking about a few videos ago. Recognizing that there are things you can't understand, and feeling that there are things you can't understand. And the gulf, not just in understanding, but in power that comes from transitioning from understanding something logically to understanding something intuitively or emotionally. Institutions are chains. History is chains. Let them have them. Let them chain themselves again. We were born with greater aims. Just some black blood, dreist affirmations. We've already discussed some of these, but we'll read through them anyway. Pilgrimages hit you with loaded messages, symbols, trials, etc., and adequate time to contemplate them. Psychopaths are powerful because they are born saved. They're born integrated with their shadows, and you can feel it around them. You are born with the opportunity to integrate your shadow manually and become powerful in a different way. I forgot I went and wrote all caps with some of these. You must accept you don't matter. You're lucky if you're a statistic. You must accept the degree to which you don't necessarily matter to anyone and the world. Once you accept you don't matter, then you can accept they don't matter, and once you've accepted they don't matter, you can treat them as materially as they deserve to be treated on your trajectory to do whatever. You may have no path, but you always have a trajectory. You are always in motion. INFJs are so foul because they refuse to acknowledge, one, they have evil within them, and two, it won't go away. In their refusal to commune with their shadow consciously, their denial, it puppets them in spite. Accepting your shadow radically begins your relationship with it. If you can't stop being evil, then you can at least have a say in it. Material flows from consciousness. This exists because we say it exists. This was actually, I was thinking of a fantasy story, and you have like a group of reality bending Neo type characters, and they aren't the main characters. The idea of them was to drop this essentially. Someone asks, "How are you flying?" They say material flows from consciousness. This exists because we say it exists. And in the exact same vein as the Ubel thing, this text to myself is earlier than my Ubel text. You can tell someone the answer, like in Morrowind. You can tell someone they are the product of a dream. But if you tell someone they are the product of a dream, they aren't going to zero sum, they aren't going to stop existing, because that might be the truth. You might have just delivered them on a silver platter the truth, but they aren't hit with the powers of that truth or the consequences of that truth because they don't even understand it fully, even if they know it to be true. Like, a Morrowind character can know they are living within a dream, but until they really feel it, they aren't going to achieve Chim, and they aren't going to zero sum. Which freaks me out, by the way, because what are the odds you and I, have encountered the truth before, read it somewhere, and not realized it was the truth because we didn't understand it fully, despite seeing it? That freaks me out a little bit. The symbol singularly represents a set of ideas. In contemplating the symbol, you contemplate everything the symbol represents. The symbol makes grappling with complex systems easier by giving you one face to interface with. Nerevar murdered 3 gods because a dead woman beat him to the 4th one. So because it's Valentine's Day, I was going to talk a bit about relationships, but this video's going a bit long, so we'll try to get through a short version. I think one of the reasons I've never slept with anyone I've dated is a lack of safety. I don't feel safe. I had this weird, lucid moment recently. Normally I'm cranking it to torture and gore and other horrific shit, but I found myself reading a relatively normal doujin in which part of the narrative involves 2 partners just lying there and talking about mundane shit they need to do the next day. And in hindsight, that is kind of what I liked about my past relationships. I mean, don't get me wrong, I enjoy my freaks, but the mundanity and the routine and the feelings of safety and security that come with that mundanity and routine, like this is what always happens, and this is what has always happened, so the likelihood of this going nuclear is minimal, even though that's not the case, is one of the, I should say, feelings that I don't think I've ever really been able to actualize. I've never slept with any of my partners because I have never actually felt safe. Not enough to be that vulnerable anyway. It was an odd realization, but a justified one, right? Because what is the first thing an ex-partner does when you break up with them? They threaten you. They freak out on you. They prove everything you were afraid of. You were smart not to let your guard that down, especially around the person you are supposed to let your guard down around completely, because they are insane. I'm not saying just women are insane, I'm saying human beings You give them the smallest amount of your actual vulnerability, and their instinct is to stab you to death. It's horrifying that you are always justified in keeping your defenses up. That would have been a much longer topic, but I am glad we got it out of the way briefly. So, in summary, symbols, pilgrimages, different symbols for different gods or concepts representing different things, worshipping them or contemplating them, each in an attempt to wrap your mind around that concept, and then once you're ready, taking it on to your flesh. Trials to make yourself greater than the pain and to prove yourself for something to whatever, and so on. But that about rippity wraps this one up. I hope you enjoyed watching, because I certainly enjoyed making it. Black Blood Driests. Black Blood Dryists. I think we might actually get somewhere one day. I hope so. Like if you enjoyed, because it helps me out a lot. Subscribe if you haven't, because we do this shit sometimes. And comment your thoughts, because I love hearing from you. What do you think about symbols or something like that? Thanks again for watching, everybody. Really, we had a lot of fun on this channel. So much fun, in fact, you can burn multiple different sorts of fun into your skin. And that's so much for me on this channel, and I look forward to doing this with you guys again in the future.